Turns out those statistic classes you're dreading might become your daily superpower when navigating diagnoses. Rachel's path to confident clinician shows how academic subjects transform into real-world impact. Professionally Psyched is the podcast that brings you cutting-edge psychology research and real-world insights from our psych community of clinicians, researchers, and educators alike. In our special alumni spotlights, we chat to graduates from our psychology degree programs about how their skills learned in the classroom have become powerful tools supporting diverse career journeys and successes. Hi everyone and welcome to Professionally Psyched. I'm Jessica Muller, PhD candidate in Public Health at James Cook University, and before we get started we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record, and for me today that's the Bindal and Wulgurukaba peoples. And I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and cultures from wherever you may be tuning in from across the country. In this alumni spotlight, Dr. Amanda Krause chats with Rachel McClymont, a JCU graduate and psychologist who discovered her passion for adolescent mental health both on the job and through an unexpected first-year elective. So grab your headphones and get ready to get professionally psyched about connecting foundational knowledge and research with real-world clinical practice. Enjoy.
Rachel, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. To start, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rachel. I am a psychologist working in child youth mental health in Queensland Health. I went through and studied at JCU, did my undergraduate in psychological science with honours, and then completed the Masters of Clinical Psych in 2023, and I've been working in Queensland Health since then.
And I've had the privilege of actually working with you while you were an undergraduate and a master's student. So I know a little bit about your trajectory, but could you tell me a little bit more about maybe the placements that you were able to do and now the work that you do as a psychologist?
Yeah, absolutely. So going through the master's program, I had some great opportunities to do some different placements. The first one was at the JCU Psychology Clinic. That was really wonderful. That was I got a chance to do a lot of psychometric assessment, so like assessment around autism and ADHD and specific learning disorders and that sort of thing. I then was over at JCU Student Equity and Wellbeing, which is really great. Lots of work around, self-compassion and concentration and stress, as I'm sure everybody knows. And then my last placement was at Child and Youth Mental Health. Queensland Health Service, it's the mental health service working with young people from ages 0 to 18. So that's where I did my last placement. Got a chance to work with a variety of young people while I was there, a lot of family work in that space as well. That's where I've ended up in the end, which has been wonderful, getting to have that opportunity. Did a little bit of time after finishing uni working over at in the neonatal unit as a psychologist, which also came from the people that I met during my time at KIMS. Yeah, and I think having those different opportunities, getting to see the assessment space and then sort of more adult sort of student space and then the child and youth space sort of led me to realize this is where I want to be. Right now, I guess.
So was working with children or that younger to 18 age group, was that always your goal?
Honestly, no. I wasn't sure that was what I wanted to do. I think I often thought I wanted to work with, if it was children, I wanted to be sort of younger children, right? Working more in the play-based sort of space. But going through uni, I did this subject, Youth Society and the Environment in first year, which was an elective that I just randomly chose. And that was a really great subject and sort of opened me up a little bit more to working with that adolescent age range. And then they're quite scary. I think people get quite scared of working with teenagers. And look, that doesn't go away. But working at child youth mental health and getting that time there, sort of realised how much of a difference you can make with teenagers. The willingness to change, the desire that they have for things to be different. But they're still they're old enough to understand, but young enough that they're still so open to change, whereas adults are a bit less open to change sometimes, I think.
Yeah, because behavior change is so hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Even for us who study it.
Yeah.
It's just so difficult.
Yeah.
How do you go about that?
Look, big question, right? It's incredibly difficult. It's so hard, I guess, to change behavior. In my current job, a lot of what we get is parents that are coming in and saying that my child is behaving in this way and they have concerns, or the school's got concerns and that sort of thing. And what we do a lot of, and what I really enjoy about the work I get to do, is that it's really systemic, right? And we know that we can't do things on an individual level. We can't just expect a 14-year-old to completely change who they are and change how they behave without the adults around them and the systems around them making that change along with them. So a lot of what we do is working to sort of see patterns and understand the patterns that happen within the family and within like the school and different environments, and trying to see, is there a different way? Like, is there a different way to be, a different way to see the world?
So then how much do you work one-on-one with a child?
Yeah.
And how much do you interface
Mm.
with their family members and the schools? And if we're really thinking systems based,
Yeah.
how much other people are being brought into this?
It really depends on the young person,
Okay.
right? For some young people, you know, they might be presenting with something that really, yes, some cognitive behavioral therapy one-on-one, that's going to be the ticket, that'll do what they need to do. Maybe they're 16, 17, they don't really need mum and dad to be part of it, they've got it. But then I think about that sort of early adolescence or mid-adolescence, we would often bring the parents in quite regularly for appointments, sometimes with just the parents, do sort of parent sessions. Sometimes we'll do some family therapy, if the family are open and willing and that's what they want to do. I'd say for every young person, and I don't want to overstate it, but pretty much for every young person, there's someone in their world you want to have involved. Oftentimes it's the parent, but it might also be like a school guidance officer, bringing them in and seeing how they can support them at school. Sometimes organising those stakeholders meetings. For younger kids, we want parents to be almost involved all the time, because you're not going to expect an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old to make those changes themselves. So having parents in session every session can really be the key to making a difference for those kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about sort of what your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah. We work, I guess we do a lot of clinical work. We'll probably see a number of young people each day, depending on, I guess, what's needed at that time. We have a few meetings as well, as anyone does. We do frequently have, I guess, care review meetings. So we're a multidisciplinary team. So we've got psychologists on our team. We've also got OTs and speechies and social workers. And so coming together to discuss different cases, to sort of understand different disciplines' perspectives on them and to be able to provide our perspective on it. A lot of phone calls with schools and with families to sort of liaise and bring things together. We have doctors that work with us, so having psychiatry reviews for our young people as well when they need it. As part of our work as psychologists in that space, something we can offer that's really unique compared to other disciplines is a sort of psychometric testing. And so for us psychologists on the team, our day-to-day can also look like doing different assessments around ADHD or ASD as it fits with their mental health presentation. So being a mental health service, it's all around mental health, but that's another part of the work that we can do day to day.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more around that assessment element of your work.
Yeah, so we find that a lot of young people come to a mental health service. They've had a big journey. Maybe they've had lots of troubles with behaviour at school throughout their life. Maybe they've had a lot of struggles in education. Maybe it's been put down to behaviour or mental health or that sort of thing. So sometimes young people come to us and we notice that pattern and we'll do some assessments. So looking at different cognitive assessments, so to understand how their brain works, their memory, their thinking, to look at all of that, as well as assessments we might do with their parents to understand, and the school, to understand what's their attention like and their focus. And we sometimes find that these young people who've come through different services, never been picked up, are then meeting a diagnosis of intellectual impairment. And it explains actually they haven't been misbehaving, they just haven't understood. And how stressful is that? And how much is that going to impact your mental health if you don't understand what's going on around you? Or we find they've got ADHD and this impulsivity, there's a big part of it that's attention based. Or it's an ASD presentation and they've been having these social difficulties and social exclusion, and you wonder why, and actually there's quite a clear explanation for why. It can be quite a rewarding part of the job, actually. Like when you realise this has been missed and you get a 16-year-old that no one's picked up on it until now, and then you can send them off with that diagnosis and with some tools around that.
Yeah,
Big part.
and I guess you're really then able in
Yeah.
those cases to answer questions they've probably been
Absolutely.
having
Yeah,
for a really long time.
absolutely. Parents wondering why
Hmm.
things are like this. Young people often wondering, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
What's wrong with me is the big question we get a lot. Help me
Whoa.
understand what's wrong with me. And the reframing is there's nothing wrong with you. You've got some challenges, but we've all got different challenges. It's just that your set of challenges make things day to day really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and reflecting on those challenges,
Yeah.
I'd love for you. I know you already mentioned
Mhm.
that one youth-focused
Yeah.
subject that you had,
Yeah.
but what else was a standout in
Yeah.
your undergraduate time at JCU that
Mhm.
really underpins some of those
Yeah.
skills you're using
Yeah.
now?
I think one of my favorite subjects, and one that I sort of think about a bit in my work, was a personality psych subject that we did during undergrad. It was a block subject, and that was really wonderful and really sort of helped me step back and understand a bit more about assessment of personality and understanding assessments a bit deeper, and also why we might be the way that we are. I've also, I guess, I draw a lot from, in ways I didn't expect, to the stat subjects. Trying to score an assessment without an understanding of standard deviations would be impossible. And trying to explain to a parent who has no education around statistics, or may not have finished school, or may have their own cognitive impairments, trying to explain report results to them when you yourself don't really understand it is really hard. And so honestly, I draw a lot probably from percentiles and standard deviations from the stat subjects.
I love that you brought that up,
Yeah.
but I think there's probably also quite a lot, not just
Yeah.
those
No.
percentiles, but the process of asking the right
Yeah.
questions, of writing
Mhm.
those reports. You had the opportunity to work on 2 different research
Yes,
projects, so
yeah.
I'd love for you to reflect on that element of your education as well.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I enjoyed most about studying psychology, was getting to do those different research projects. I loved research. I really enjoyed, I think, the process of coming up with ideas collaboratively, and thinking through how do we actually execute that idea and what does that look like. I had an opportunity, I think, in the work we did together during my master's, to do a bit more of a qualitative research project, which was really good, and sort of good practice in how to write questions, how to ask questions, how to look for themes in questions, which is what I do day to day, is look for themes in the conversations I have with my young people and pull that out to help me understand them a bit deeper. I was really, I guess, I feel very fortunate with the topics, I guess, of the research projects I got to do, that I found have been quite relevant to the work I do now. In my 4th year project, I looked around self-affirmation, and that's something that comes up so much with young people, in terms of them being able to draw on their strengths and look at the good things that they can do. And then for my master's project, I guess we worked a lot around music and self-compassion. And self-compassion is a big part of the work that I do now, especially with parents, honestly, and with young people, to help them have that compassion for themselves. But I think the skills that I learned in doing that research have really made me a better report writer. Makes it easier for me to write reports that people who don't read reports can understand. And it's made me better at asking questions. And how do I ask questions of the people that I work with and other professionals when putting these sort of reports together.
Yeah, that's so great to hear.
Yeah.
So, if you might reflect back to your younger, earlier self, what would you tell yourself as an undergraduate who maybe isn't loving those subjects, or struggling to understand them, or unsure of where they want to go and take this degree? What advice do you have?
Look, yeah, I was definitely one of the ones who did not enjoy the first stat subject. It was not my favorite thing in the world. I wonder sometimes how much of that was this group fear of stats that we have. I think I would tell myself, one, to understand there's different pathways to where you want to go, right? And I was very fortunate getting through the masters, but I think in my first year, I don't think I understood what it would take to get to where I am now and to understand, okay, what does it mean to become a psychologist? Like, how do I even do that? So I think understanding the pathways, I think also even in subjects like stats or whatever it might be, whatever might feel kind of useless or whatever right now, trying to find something that interested me or that felt valuable. We picked this degree for a reason, right? Like, you don't go into psychology because you hate psychology. And so trying to find something that was interesting. Like, I look back on stats and I think, okay, some of that research design stuff was really great. And I probably could have focused on that a bit more and found a bit more value and joy in that side of things. I think that's a big part of it, is trying to sort of enjoy the journey of psychology and look for the opportunities that might pop up that you might not expect. Or like, I think again about the research projects I got to do, it was in these sort of passing conversations that you have with people after lectures, all those sort of things. These are the things that pop up. So taking those opportunities, because you don't know what you'll be interested in. And you don't know where it'll lead you. Like, if I hadn't picked that subject in first year, who knows what my interest would be now. And so looking for things that interest you and taking those opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really great point to end on too, is just looking for what interests you and being able to craft opportunities around that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things within psychology. Obviously, we've been talking about your clinical work, but there's so many sub-disciplines to explore.
Absolutely. There's so many opportunities, right? Like, I look at, even since I've finished uni, I spent a bit of time working up in the NICU as a psychologist up there. And in that space, getting to see the different psychologists at the hospital and different work they could do. And then the psychologists at Kim's and then in community. And then people who aren't practicing psychologists at all, but like doing the research that's making our work possible, right? And so it's, there's so many different avenues you can go down and so many different things you can do. Yeah.
Excellent. Rachel, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Professionally Psyched. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support of our Psych community. If you'd like to show your support, or if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our emails, and don't forget you can listen to full episodes on Spotify.